Nigeria contributes 45% of global raw share nuts, with a production capacity of 20,000 metric tons of processed shea butter annually, according to the Nigerian Export Promotion Council. However, the federal government believes the influx of illicit traders coming in to buy from local farmers, especially in rural communities for export, is robbing the country of the full benefits it stands to get from its sheer potential, which is the thrust of this multi-sectoral meeting in the office of Vice President Kashim Shettima. The Vice President announces that President Bola Tinubu has approved a temporary ban on the export of raw shea nuts from Nigeria.
This is a collective decision involving the subnationals and the government at the center. And the government is not closing doors, no. We are opening opportunities. The President is currently in Brazil, and Nigeria and Brazil have agreed to prioritize access for Nigerian shea butter and oil into the Brazilian market.
For decades, Africa has been known as the world's raw material warehouse, exporting gold, oil, and minerals to the rest of the world, while importing finished goods at a premium. But that era might be ending. In a stunning policy shift, multiple African nations are now banning the export of raw materials, choosing instead to process and refine their natural resources at home. This decision could redefine Africa's relationship with the global economy and rewrite the rules of international trade forever. In 2025, a wave of announcements swept across the continent. From Zambia's copper belt to Ghana's gold mines and Nigeria's oil fields, leaders were united by a single message: we will no longer export raw wealth, we will export finished products. Tanzania banned raw lithium exports. Ghana suspended unprocessed bauxite shipments. Zimbabwe restricted the export of unrefined chrome and lithium. Namibia followed, halting raw critical mineral exports in 2024. What once seemed like isolated national policies has now snowballed into a continental economic revolution. According to the African Development Bank, Africa loses more than $300 billion annually by exporting unprocessed raw materials. That's equivalent to exporting jobs, technology, and opportunity, while importing dependency. But the new movement, called the Value Addition Revolution, seeks to reverse that trend. Africa's resources have been the foundation of global wealth for centuries. Now, Africa wants those resources to build its own future. For decades, Africa's economic model was shaped by colonial-era trade systems: raw extraction for export, finished imports in return. The continent supplied 70% of the world's cobalt, 50% of its gold, and 30% of its oil, but captured less than 5% of the total global value chain. A ton of raw cocoa exported from Côte d'Ivoire brings in around $2,000. The same ton, processed into chocolate, is worth over $25,000. That's the difference between dependency and development. And African leaders know it. The new bans aim to keep the value at home, building refineries, smelters, and factories that can convert raw materials into finished goods. The African Union's Agenda 2063 calls this industrial sovereignty. It's not just an economic policy, it's a statement of power. For the first time, Africa is saying to the world, we are no longer your suppliers, we are your competitors. In Zimbabwe, the government has partnered with Chinese firms to build lithium processing plants, turning raw ore into battery-grade material. In Ghana, local entrepreneurs are building cocoa processing facilities to make African-owned chocolate brands. In Ethiopia, textile manufacturing is booming, powered by hydroelectric energy from the Grand Renaissance Dam. These are not isolated successes, they're signs of a continental shift. The African Continental Free Trade Area (AFCFTA), now active across 47 nations, is accelerating integration. With export bans in place, intra-African trade in processed goods is expected to grow 50% by 2030, According to UNECA, that means African-made copper wire shipped to Kenya instead of China. African-assembled engines exported to South Africa instead of Europe. This is the new vision. Made in Africa, for Africa, by Africa. The reaction from the global market has been mixed. Some Western analysts warn that restricting raw exports could backfire, scaring off foreign investors. But African leaders argue that this is about long-term sovereignty, not short-term profits. Namibia's Mines Minister, Tom Alwindo, said in 2024, "We cannot industrialize by exporting raw materials forever. Someone has to take the first step." China has responded strategically, offering to co-build processing plants instead of just importing minerals. The European Union, meanwhile, has expressed concern over supply disruptions, particularly for electric vehicle materials, but the message from Africa is clear. We're open for partnership, not exploitation. If successful, Africa's export bans could generate millions of industrial jobs and boost GDP by $100 billion annually. The manufacturing sector could expand from $700 billion today to $1.3 trillion by 2035, according to McKinsey. Local processing could add 40% more value to African exports, transforming how global trade perceives the continent. But the transition won't be easy. Infrastructure, electricity, and capital access remain major hurdles. Experts warn that, without strong industrial policies, export bans could cause temporary losses before the long-term benefits appear. Yet across the continent, optimism is growing. In Ghana's industrial parks, new steel plants are under construction. In Tanzania, new fertilizer factories are scaling up. In Nigeria, the Dangote refinery, Africa's largest, is proof that local production can redefine economic power. Beyond the numbers, something deeper is happening. Africa's export bans reflect a shift in mindset, from extraction to creation. The continent is no longer waiting for validation from abroad. It's writing its own economic story, one policy at a time. The day Africa stopped exporting raw wealth was the day it started exporting confidence. The movement echoes post-colonial dreams of self-reliance, but this time, it's backed by capital, coordination, and continental resolve. Africa's ban on raw exports is not just a trade policy. It's a revolution in thought. It's about value, ownership, pride. For centuries, Africa was told it was too poor to process its wealth. Now, it's proving it can, and it will. The age of exporting potential is over. The age of exporting power has begun. This is Africa's new chapter, and the world is watching.